Good morning, everyone. I wanted to get this video out yesterday. This is part two to the video I did before, but I'm going to show today that nothing is needed to target you externally without anything in your body. Not saying a lot of TIs don't have implants. A lot of TIs do have implants because a lot of TIs are old school. Um, I did a post yesterday talking about nanotechnology, and here's what I said. Everybody's got nanotech in them. Every single human being on this planet has nanotech. And okay, uh and the point of this say everyone needs to detox their body of nanotech. Just know, even if you get all the nanotech out your body, the attacks won't stop. Sure they will lessen, but they won't stop because it's not needed. And then I said, you will find nanotech in every human being due to the transhumanism agenda and human augmentation. It don't mean you're a targeted individual and had every aspect of your life destroyed and being fried to hell and back. And the reason nanotech is being used in TIs is we're beta test for the transhuman augmentation agenda. So it's used to amplify the effects of the weapons and for further training, research, and development. And for bio-cyber interface, human augmentation, but it's definitely not needed for direct energy weapon attacks or remote neural attacks or remote neural monitoring. They do that with your brain signature. Okay, that's all they need is your unique brain signature. And there's people that even claim that everybody's got a unique heart signature, EKG. Now I've not studied that enough to know, but I'm going to be citing cases and stuff today. And I guess I'm going to start by reading the information. And then I've got a video of a news clip from 2000 on the news, a news series. It's 11 minutes I'm going to play for y'all of them talking about wirelessly being able victims. It was a news report. I don't know if it was CNN. They did a three-part series in 2000 that I'm going to play for y'all talking about this technology and how it works. Okay, so this is a good site with some good information. So I'm just going to go over basics for anybody who might be new, okay? But we're fixing to get into the meat. This is really good, broke down, really good for anybody. I mean, I found it interesting. Okay, so what are these monstrosities? In years, revelations of the frightening surge in surveillance. Communication has been made, but they've only exposed the tip of the iceberg. Below surface lies a vast sponsored surveillance monitoring program being implemented unconstitutionally against select segments of the population. Blacklisted search circulated through agencies, contractor, community watch groups are a big part of the problem. Here's four elements of this covert program. Their interest here. Remote monitoring refers to the ability to track a person anywhere, anytime using direct energy in form of signals intelligence. Direct energy can be basically defined as devices used to survey, convey, pacify, disable, or kill using electromagnetic ionizing acoustic, particle, or plasma energy forms. These are primary tools used in electronic harassment campaigns. Electronic harassment involves the use of DEWs or signal intelligence to invade one's privacy through surveillance or to cause annoyance or physical harm. Electronic harassment campaigns allow the perpetrator to reach a person within the confines of their home, making accessible to even the most difficult, hard to reach targets. And there's an NSA document that admits that they have the ability to microwave somebody in their home and bathe the target's living quarters with direct energy, with radiation, electromagnetic radiation. And I will try to find that. Matter of fact, I think my next video is going to be about Havana syndrome. And when I cover that video and do commentary on it, I will pause and show you, blow it up when he read that document that said that. Um, Okay, organized surveillance involves intrusive, around-the-clock monitoring or intimidation of target groups by agents, surveillance role players, or individuals from community watch groups. Okay, remember, for mind control technologies to be effective, they must keep their victims inside a controlled environment. The contractors cannot allow their victims to engage in a pattern of random or chaotic situational conversational scenarios unchecked. It disrupts their technology, disrupting the verification process. Without verification, there can be no mind control. It simply cannot exist. Every response of the victim must be verified. They employ teams of pseudo-independent advocates, cognitively infiltrate groups and communities, as well as anyway. That's different information. So anyway, victims of surveillance and monitoring programs may experience only one or any combination of the aforementioned elements. Besides the obnoxious information gathered from surveillance, the program's additional plausible intent is to experiment with, marginalize, silence, pacify, or eliminate those who are targeted. The victims are often collectively referred to as target individual. These claims are not some loony conspiracy theory. This is honestly happening to segments of the population. Simply put, new COINTELPRO. So, directed energy, signals, intelligence are essential elements used in surveillance campaigns. For those who may be unfamiliar with energy technology, it may be easier to relate your thoughts to common items like cell phone, radio, Wi-Fi, computer. These items all utilize or process electromagnetic radio waves in a passive form. Law enforcement agents may use energy technology in active forms of speeding radar, through the wall imaging devices, um, anti personnel crowd control devices. They've replaced spraying water cannons with spraying LRAD. For perspective, your microwave oven could be crudely converted into an active DEW, but the type of weapons we're concerned with here have to be much more advanced and refined. Military grade designs. DEWs and signal intelligence have been the most aggressive areas of defense research in recent years. Direct energy use has many forms, including radar communications, survey, non-lethal, lethal weapons, non-penetrating, penetrating, imaging, silent sound, subliminal communications used in Iraq, similar to advertising used by larger consumer stores, thought redirection, manipulation, surveillance, remote monitoring, the list goes on. Persons of interest can be monitored in their home 24 hours a day via signals intelligence technology. It is essentially a euphemistic ankle bracelet monitor that cannot be seen. This is not openly disclosed naturally because of fears it would steal in citizens. This type of surveillance is a human right violation, especially offensive if the individuals it's being utilized against have not committed any crimes. Any discovery that could possibly utilize the weapon will indeed be used as a weapon in some point in time. DEWs have come a long way since Germany first began to weaponize electromagnetic energy. Because of stealth nature of the media, these weapons can be used in ways that are extremely frightening. Firstly, the energy waves are invisible, so you can't see them. Second, energy waves are silent, so you can't hear them, depending on the frequency range. You will sometimes, when they're probing you for a response with remote neural monitor or hitting you with these weapons, your ears will start popping or ringing, or you may lose hearing in one ear and get a silent ringing in the other. Popping. Sometimes it sounds like an ocean in your ear, depending on what they're using. Um, Okay, secondly, energy waves. All right, you can't smell or taste their presence. You can't even feel some forms of direct energy. Although the energy forms that you can physically feel could plausibly be used to torture, cause harm, or even kill. So if a Western system that can invade all forms of human perception, one which has the documented capability to be all-seeing, all-knowing, lethal, does not frighten you, then you may need to check your pulse. All-seeing refers to the optical through-the-wall infrared technology capabilities and energies, as well as their employing in anything from satellites to home electronics. You can buy the handheld XAVER millimeter waves model online. All knowing refers to capabilities of energy systems that can utilize algorithms to interpret neural processes or thoughts. And lethal simply means there's documentation DEWs can kill undetected. So what this leaves us with is a weapon system that escapes detection. An invisible bullet. That's scary. That's the perfect weapon for the perfect crime. Why would this be happening? In many regards, these harassment campaigns mirror some of the techniques used in the FBI's COINTELPRO that was supposedly disassembled after congressional church committee hearings in the 70s. What we're witnessing now is COINTELPRO 2.0, a plausible explanation for the revival of the new COINTELPRO model may lie in its use as a counterintelligence tool to circumvent possible citizen dissent that could have arisen when the U.S. decided to conduct military campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's well accepted that American media and citizen dissent had a powerful effect on the outcome of the Vietnam campaign. So, from a governmental perspective, if there ever was to be any future successes with military campaigns, there would be some way that the government could stifle citizen and media dissent, and the COINTELPRO model could fit that ball. So now it appears that illegal measures used by the original program may be resurrected to quell any counter voices to the actions being carried out in the Middle East. Then we have the effects of terrorism, caused by 70 years of meddling in Middle Eastern affairs, exacerbated by invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. Terrorism opened the doors wide for even further draconian surveillance measures for monitoring, manipulation, and further segments of the population. The surveillance program has evolved over the years to include occupational safety measures, and more NGO participation from the likes of community watch groups, including the blacklisting, watch listing, targeting of people reasons beyond national security. These surveillance programs represent an exercise in extrajudicial prosecution which goes against everything the Constitution stands for. But not just the Constitution, this is worldwide. Who's being targeted? The program's surveillance program woven itself. I mean, I'm going to get to these weapons attacks not needing nothing in your body, and they haven't needed it for years. They're using it though. If you have something in your body, it's for training, research, and development, and to amplify it. Remember, everybody's got nanotech. Everybody don't have implants. Okay. To my knowledge, there have been no scientific on the demographics of the victims, but we can assume expected SWAT population would be affected would include intellectual, whistleblowers, activists, writers, journalists, lawyers, dissidents, eccentrics, patriots, multiculturalists, secularists, minority groups, independent people, ex-cons, and anyone who doesn't fit with the creed, cadre, faith, philosophies, or politics of the offenders. I can only imagine the number of women whose privacy is being perversely violated by surreptitious surveillance that's being used in these campaigns. The most unfortunate victims will be the children of our future who have to bear with this crime because their parents' generation did not act or take these warnings seriously. In the words of the Air Force Secretary in 2007, non-lethal weapons should be tested on U.S. civilians before being used on the battlefield. Okay, who's doing this? It's been noted uptick in citizen complaints that coincides with the commencement of the first Gulf War and the ensuing creation of overreaching Department of Homeland Security and abusive powers afforded by the Patriot Act, Department of Defense Directive 1994, National Defense Authority Act 2012, subsequent executive orders which all provided the carte blanche for government infringement upon civil liberties of U.S. citizens. On the web, you will find many juicy theories of who the offenders of these crimes are, ranging from Satanist corporations, banks, global secret societies, Israeli intelligence, powerful elite families, and Illuminati. And this person says, in her opinion, this is pure nonsense and depression, and it is simply misdirection meant to pique interest and lead the reader further away from the truth of who the real culprits are. And this person says, I get occasional emails from persons claiming stuff about reptilian psychic nonsense. This is either from bona fide crazy people or simple attempts at misdirection. No, it's noted that ties do exist between constituents with U.S. government organizations such as Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commissions, etc. There's no evidence to suggest that these entities' interests are directly tied to organized surveillance electronic harassment campaigns. For a basic description of the New World Order, anyway, that's something else. By keeping it simple, looking at motive that was this person stating. This person's got some good info I'm getting into. Now, I kind of disagree with some of the stuff they say, but especially right in that area. Now, even if you do think the reptilian agenda is real, and a lot of people do, keep it to yourself. Talking about it as a TI and trying to say it's the reptilians will only make us and everybody else to the normal public. If we're trying to have a channel trying to expose this, we want to keep it as realistic as possible. Okay, by keeping it simple. Look at and I did a video. I went down the reptilian rabbit hole, and I can't tell you my opinion either way, because I don't want to talk about it on this channel. But maybe I'll start a different channel and talk about something. Nah, I'm not gonna get into it. I could tell you some good stuff about that, but by keeping it simple from a biblical perspective, by keeping it simple, looking at motive, technology, financial resource, power, infrastructure, everything points to one capability. It's that this is government technology. Though this does not preclude these campaigns from possibly being subsidized by subcontracted to non-geo NGOs and other entities. And this is I got an interview I've done that I have not. It's going to take forever to edit from a guy who claims it's being subsidized to not NGOs. It's a very good interview, and I need to get time. I'm just been man. If you knew how hard it is to take care of my responsibilities and do all this, sometimes, especially with the V2K in my head, 24/7 attacks and all the little psyops they throw at me. Praise God, the Most High, He allows me to do this. Everything points to only okay. It's that diversification delegation of this program that gives rise to these juicy theories of who's really behind the perpetration. There's smoke and mirrors. Several government NGO programs such as TIPS, Weed and Seed, Citizen Corps, InfoGuard, law enforcement show intent to permeate our communities. With all this taken into consideration, along with circumstantial evidence, it's my estimation that offenders of these surveillance crimes may arise from the network of Department of Homeland Security, U.S. intelligence agents, security contractors, military personnel, community watch group, NGOs, surveillance role player, anyone charged with a crime who's made a plea deal to become a community informant. This is all held together under the guise of national security, occupational safety, community watch. This is simply new COINTELPRO. The reason in which someone's added to a target list may dictate which agency or entity most likely to be instrumental in their surveillance. A whistleblower could probably expect more state and law enforcement sponsored involvement, while ex-cons should report more community watch group harassment. Some targets appear to be blacklisted in a way they receive harassment from the full gamut. The electronic harassment component is probably is most probably carried out through channels, government-based channels, perhaps with some contractor involvement. We forget, but President Eisenhower tried to warn us about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. Where's the evidence? The surveillance program was designed to be virtually impossible to prosecute due to the invisibility of direct energy, media, and plausible deniability of surveillance players. The evidence is intangible by design in forms of physics and psychology. Though direct physical attacks are lacking to show government entities are direct complicit these attacks on American citizens, the circumstantial evidence and victims' testimonies, lawsuits, various state laws, existent patents, unclassified military weapons, literature, publications, and statements by government-associated officials add veracity to the existence of the unethical surveillance program. Direct evidence is elusive because the electronic attacks are invisible, silent, difficult to detect. Perfect crime. Instruments used for detecting direct energy, such as broadband spectrum analyzers, can cost more than the annual income of most Americans, and the expertise required to operate the instrumentation does not come overnight. Not to mention, we are probably dealing with military grade weapons that can be pulsed and cloaked. Additionally, parties involved with government programs are bound to secrecy by non disclosure agreements with the threat of serious legal prosecution, most probably blackmail via compromising personal information that's private and intimate in nature. Perhaps this is also why green and ambitious politicians that make bold promises end up like the status quo, hence nothing gets done in Congress. Again, only a state or government power can possess the high degree of finance, technology, and resources to do this. So these whistleblowers that come forward are not, they releasing information, but if you look at Snowden got charged with espionage because he signed the NDA. And I was hearing somebody talk about information from the Montauk Project, and he said, I cannot talk about the Phoenix Project because I worked directly with the Phoenix Project and I signed an NDA for espionage. So you got it. And then Robert Duncan, in a Zoom meeting I was with Robert Duncan, was everybody asked him about Project Soul Catcher 1. Well, you'll never find that book, and if anybody does, let me know. I want it. Because he said he couldn't release it. After he wrote it, he realized he would have been breaking um, law releasing it, and that so he could only tell us what was able to be told. Um, so anyway, so that's why you never find Project Soul Catcher 1. If you got the copy and you're wondering, like, got volume 2 and you're like, where's volume 1? I asked him that question and he told me. Okay. In order to cover up and skin the reality of the surveillance program, disinformation campaigns can be utilized for marginalizing victims by using trolls or websites that post far out claims, incoherent gibberish in the vein of being a true victim. This is subterfuge. It's old school activism 101 tool, whereby the victim's credibility is tarnished when an offender masquerades as a victim, disseminates erroneous information that makes the true victim's claim appear to be irrational and delusional. The problem arises when someone's first introduction to this crime turns out to be one of those erroneous postings, which leaves the reader thinking this is just a bunch of crazy loons blabbing about conspiracies. They will leave the experience and never pay any credibility to the subject again. So please use direction when reading Eternal Post and literature on this topic. There are several reasons why there's so much incongruity, outlandish material posted on the internet about these crimes. Internet disinformation artists who are part of surveillance campaigns troll the web, posting gibberish and damaging material that makes true victims appear loony. Many victims are initially in shock when they discover that all this misfortune, odd experience they've been witnessing, are actually orchestrated surveillance and it's actually happening to them. At first, you're shocked, then you feel violated, then you start seeking answers. At this point, you do sound like a babbling fool, as anyone who's been in shock can attest to. Many victims are prone to believing and repeating everything they first read about after they first discover they've been targeted. Some of the information is erroneous and gets spread about further by those who are rushing to discover truths behind their dilemma. These campaigns are classified and covert. It means they're veiled from prosecution, so there's no specific culprit that can be identified. It ultimately leads to speculation, grandiose conjecture that absurdly points the finger at such things. And this person says, as Satanists and Illuminati. Now, I do agree that some of that is involved, but everybody's involved in some aspect. Every group of people is involved and can be paid and changed to be a perp. So to say that they're not involved, I just don't think is fair. If you think it's too noble, the government's too noble to be involved in unconstitutional deeds, I suggest you read Project Mockingbird. Marginalization is a common method used to reduce the threat effectiveness of a foe. We can all recognize how powerful a single word can be once it's cast upon someone. Something is negative in the light. Think of multiple people who've had their names, careers, and lives tarnished simply by having label as their name: murder, rapist, pedophile, terror, racist, bigot, mentally ill, diseased, dumb, delusional. These are just a few dirty words that can brand a person for life, whether justified or not. Truth. It's a common smear campaign technique to label electronic harassment victim as delusional. Agencies with the government have mastered the art of disinformation. It's not difficult to tarnish victims' claim through the labeling process. Plus, all factual information involving the existence and increasing uses of dues by government, some still try to write off victims' claims as delusional. It's preposterous to label as delusional all the proclaimed victims who have strikingly similar claims of harassment, which incidentally mirror COINTELPRO model type of approach. A good example is Tupac's family. If you scroll down in my videos, I did a good video on the old COINTELPRO and how they targeted Tupac's family. Do you think Tupac's mom was supposed to uh, uh, be on crack? You think she was just no, a government agent played her close and got her addicted to crack. Read it. It's facts. Because she was in the Black Panther Party speaking out. Some still try to write the same type of tactics are apparently used on these victims, which defiles measures. So let's accept the truth. Fortunately, President has been labeled victims labeled as delusional have been prevailed, and the truth was unveiled. Were the claims of the victims called delusional under the COINTEL program before the truth were revealed to Americans by activist whistleblowers? Yes, and the victims were redeemed by the truth. How about those who had complained about privacy infringements before Edward Snowden enlightened us all? Were they delusional conspiracy theorists? A conspiracy is a secret plan or agreement between two people to commit a legal subversive act. Big Brother says, as long as you do as you're told, you have nothing to fear. Conspiracy theory was a term created by CIA disinformation agents to discredit inquiring minds who are simply raising a question about something that doesn't seem to be answered by foregoing explanation due to either incongruities, extraordinary coincidences, or deviation from laws of probability. It's a nice example of labeling wordplay usage that turns something into a dirty word. People conspire of all the time. Just watch the news. Same holds true with the word theory. Theory provides scientists and each in turn of us with amazing innovations. Combine the words, and you get a term that actually holds integrity. Some intellects theorize that the NSA has conspired to obtrusively obtain vast unnecessary amounts of data on common citizens. Those intellects were labeled as conspiracy theorists. And then Edward Snowden enlightened us, as such as the theory of conspiracy theory was indeed a conspiracy. Why I consider these matters significant. Someday it could be yourself, your children, your grandchildren become victims of these harassing surveillance monitoring campaigns. Campaigns do not mesh with the moral fabric. Americans are being tortured by the program, so is everybody around the world. That's a TI. Dudes using some of these campaigns have the ability to silent kill and cause many types of diseases without any proof they were used against the victim. In fact, these injustices are not addressed by the legal system, so extrajudicial prudence is left to those in conflict. Also significant, in fact, these weapons allow for our privacy, coveted human properties, our thoughts, emotions, and decisions to be violated, manipulated, and potentially exposed. Will we no longer be individuals in the future if we can't hold secrets to call our own? Could thought police and pre-crime units be a reality in our near future? They've been a reality for a long time. For instance, look up the future, look up Department of Homeland Security, Future Attribute Screening Technology, or the Project Hostile Intent, or Malintent Technology. They've had this, remember, they don't let you know what they got. So if you've ever went to an airport and got heavily stalked, chances are when you went through the airport, what happened was the system read your biometrics. They scanned you. You're nervous. You're a TI, so of course you're nervous waiting at an airport. So you're nervous and you got your blood pressure up and your vitals are off, and it's showing you as a nervous individual. And so once that scanner goes off, a call or text or whatever gets sent all around the airport to watch you. Okay, so that's why people say they're heavily stalked. The technology has been around for years. Remember, when they release it, they've had it for years. Future attribute screening technology, Homeland Security, malintent technology, Project Hostile Intent. Now you got to do a deep dive. You can't just go to Google. Google will show you some stuff. DuckDuckGo, Brave search engine. There's different searching. Yandex. Um, Research that technology and tell me if they can't target you without implants. That's just a start. I'm fixing to name cases where an NSA whistleblower um, talked about this technology and other stuff. Okay, detailed technical information, the construct, implementation of signals, intelligence, and direct energy can be intricate because these details are largely classified. Remember, all this stuff about biofield and all that stuff, which is real, and I can show you a document showing the biofield real from 2000, a government document straight off the CIA website if you'd like to see it, and I might do that before I get off here. But all this information they're telling you now is because it's allowed to be talked about. Other than that, somebody would be getting charged with espionage. So imagine the stuff that they can't talk about because of espionage. Imagine. Okay. Okay, it would be superfluous conjecture to attempt to cover such material in detail, therefore it has been omitted. The dirt page contains some variable information, technology about being utilized in the surveillance campaign. Individuals such as Duncan label this type of information, though I cannot touch the validity of there. Become apparently whistleblowers with the title of doctor, or those who have been in official employment are particularly susceptible to smear campaigns. And I proved to myself Duncan was real and that he really worked he really worked with the CIA. I have proof from a CIA website of a meeting he chaired in 1988 about technology. And he even says in the meeting he chaired that we need to focus more on technology. So what I've done here with this saying, okay, to make attempt to prove via the reader with synopsis, commentary, documents, documentation, okay? Booyah. I believe that one way to change verse condition and inform as many people as possible. The dirt. The following items are experts reference from other sources, which hopefully add to your enlightenment. Remote control humans. Patent number 601-7302. In human subjects, sensory resonances can be excited by subliminal atmospheric acoustic pulses that are tuned into the resonance frequency. The half-hertz sensory resonance affects the automatic nervous system and may cause relaxation, drowsiness, or sexual excitement, depending on the precise acoustic frequency near a half a hertz used. The effects of the 2.5 hertz resonance include slowing of certain cortical processes, sleepiness, disorientation. For those effects to occur, acoustic intensity must lie in certain deeply subliminal range. Suitable apparatus consists of a portable, battery-powered source of weak subacoustic audioacoustic radiation. The method of apparatus, and I'm reading straight from the patent, can be used by the general public to aid as a relaxation, sleep, sexual arousal, clinically for control, perhaps treatment of insomnia, tremors, or epileptic seizures, anxiety disorders. This is further application for non-lethal weapon that can be used in law enforcement standoff situations for causing drowsiness, disorientation in targeted subjects. It's then preferable to use venting acoustic monopoles in the form of a device that exhales with sub-audio frequencies. Leading government officials acknowledges duties, microwave mind control, modern torture and control mechanisms, eliminating human rights and privacy. Dr. Ronnie Kield, former chief medical officer, Finland, report from 1999, September 25th. All our emotion, moods, and thoughts have a specific brain frequency which has been cataloged. If these records fall into the wrong hands, our behaviors, attitudes can be manipulated by persons whose ethic, morals are not in our best interest. Both military agencies have been infiltrated with such persons. Okay, Project Pandora. In 1965, it was discovered that the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was being hit with electromagnetic radiation from the microwave spectrum, but the fact was kept from the secret from the embassy employee. The DoD's Advanced Research Projects Agency set up a lab at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research and participated in Project Pandora. Scientists began by zapping monkeys to study the biological effects of highly concentrated microwave frequencies. Similarly, studies were done at the VA hospital and Kansas City University of Rochester, Brooks Air Force Base in Texas, Johns Hopkins, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, and many other domestic foreign research labs. The CIA began experimenting with other forms of direct energy in the electromagnetic spectrum. Delgado experimented on 4 human subjects using radio waves, reporting they experienced different emotions, sensations, and colored visions. Delgado stated these weapons were more dangerous than the atomic destruction. With knowledge of the brain, he said, we may transform, we may shape, direct, and roboticize men. Okay, Alan Frey, a biophysicist, Advanced Electronics Center. Discovered in 1958, the auditory system responds to electromagnetic energy in a portion of the RF spectrum at low power densities, well below necessary for biological damage. The human auditory system and the table radio may be one order of magnitude apart from sensitivity to RF energy. Frey proposed stimulating the nervous system without damage caused by electrodes. He wrote 2 papers. Microwave auditory effect, applications in human auditory response to modulated electromagnetic energy. Frey's work had obvious implications for covert operations. He synchronized pulse microwaves with the myocardial rhythm of a frog's heart, the heart stopping beating. The frog's heart, the heart stopped beating. Frey had perfected the induction of heart seizures by beamed electromagnetics. He microwaved cats and found that stimulation of hypothalamus had a powerful effect on emotions. Frey found that human subjects exposed to 1310 megahertz and 2,982 megawaves microwaves at average power densities of 0.4 to 2 centimeters / centimeter 2 perceived auditory sounds. MK Ultra. Okay, for those who don't know, MK Ultra, well, let's just do it. CIA, in association with various, undertook a large series of experience on unsuspected prisoners, students, military personnel, and other recruited in at least 162 sub-projects. What became anyway, we all know about that one. Okay. Unfortunately, Richard Helms ordered the destruction of records before they came. Anyway, official test weapons. CNN, Air Force chief test weapons on testy U.S. mobs. Air Force Security Michael Wine stated in 2007, non-lethal weapons should be tested on civilians before used on the battlefield, referring to the use of EM weapon crowd control situations. The object is basically public relations. Domestic use would make it easier to avoid questions from others about possible safety considerations. More remote control humans. Robert A. Monroe, 1993. Method for inducing mental, emotional, physical states of consciousness, including specific mental activity in human beings. Patented by Robert A. Monroe, a practitioner of remote viewing, founder of the Monroe Institute in Charlottesville, Virginia. Specific states of consciousness can be induced through generation of stereo audio signals have specific wave shapes. Human brains, in the form of EEGs, are superimposed upon specific stereo audio signatures known as carrier frequencies, which are within range of human hearing. DEWS, a study conducted by Andrei Pakhomov, Yaha Akel, Olga Pakhmova, Bruce Stuck, and Michael R. Murphy with the Brooks Air Force Base Human Effectiveness Dictionary offers a scientific analysis of the effects of millimeter waves, current state and implications of research on biological effects of millimeter waves. A literature review. McKesson Bioservices, Army Medical Research Detachment, Walter Reed Institute of Research, Direct Energy Bioeffects Divisions. I keep going on that one. Weapons are for enemies, no citizens. Why has the weapon been more widely used for war? It doesn't have the success rate needed to be reliably used for war in place of ground troops. It probably is being used as a supplement. According to European Parliament documents, it was used in Desert Storm to fatigue and demoralize troops. Also, if it were successfully used in war once, countries would invest more in anti-cyclotron defenses. So it is considered more valuable as a political dissident, silencing, spying, espionage, and silent assassination tool. The subliminal is real. Nexus Magazine, Volume 5, Issue 5, October, November 1998. Military use of mind control weapons. Judy Wall wrote this, 1998. PSYOPs weaponry used in the Persian Gulf War. Subliminally, a much more powerful technology was at work. A sophisticated electronic system to speak directly to the mind of the listener. artificially implant negative emotional states, feelings of fear, anxiety, despair, and hopelessness. This subliminal system doesn't just tell a person to feel an emotion, it makes them feel it. It implants that emotion in their minds. Presentation system carries cloned emotional signatures. The result is overwhelming. Do's again. U.S. has deployed the Project Seraph active denial weapon in Iraq. Raytheon outfitted Humvees with their Silent Guardian protection system, a device capable of heating the skin to 1/64 of an inch, causing intense pain similar to intense sunburn. With a 103, with the goal to facilitate dispersing the crowd. According to a report released by the Air Force on the human effects of this weapon, people with contact lenses, those wearing metal, suffered greater effects, which is why they're spraying metals all in the air and it's important you keep metals out of your body. You can do that with garlic. There's a lot more other things you can use to do that. I just use garlic every day. Did it this morning. Imprint of a coin was discovered on the skin of a test subject, and death or severe heart problems may occur. Crowd control, active denial. Wade Smith, deputy director of the program for Raytheon, has voluntarily felt the beam during the testing. This, in effect, literally gets you under your skin. I can assure you, once you come in contact with the beam, you'll be inclined to stop whatever you're doing. Active denial technology uses a transmitter to send a tight beam of 95 gigahertz millimeter waves. The energy reaches the subject and penetrates less than 1/64 of an inch into the skin. A second burst can heat the skin to a temperature of 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The sensation is like that experience when touching an ordinary light bulb. The flesh does not burn, however, because of low levels of energy used. Exposure of 250 seconds would be required before burns would result. Sandia National Labs website has the following information. ADS systems are a new class of non-lethal weapons using 95 gigahertz millimeter waves. Directed energy technology capable of rapidly heating a person's skin to achieve that pain threshold, which has been demonstrated by AFRL human test subject at very effective repelling people without burning skin or causing secondary effects. Active denial technology provides an effective non-lethal active response mechanism to disperse, disturb, distract, establish the intent of intruders. It emits a 95 gigahertz non-electromagnetic beam of energy that penetrates 1/64 of an inch into human tissue where nerve receptors are concentrated. Within seconds, the beam will heat the exposed skin tissue to a level where intolerable pain is experienced and natural defense mechanisms take over. This intense heating sensation stops only if the individual moves out of the beam's path or the beam's turned off. The sensation caused by the system has been described by test subjects as feeling like touching a frying pan or intense radiant heat from a fire. Burn injuries prevented by limiting the beam's intensity and duration. DoD-sponsored military wave human effectiveness testing initiated in 2001 has demonstrated ADT is both effective and safe without any long-term effects. It is expected that the DoD funding human effect of small beam ADS during the next 6 to 8 months will validate its effectiveness and safety as a non-lethal weapon system. That's from the company website. The weapon's lethal depending on the distance to the target and the power level setting. Second and third degree burns are possible at shorter ranges, higher power settings, or longer time periods of exposure. Besides using the most benign terms for these new weapons, the public face of a new technology restricted those systems that will cause less resistance among the general public due to their development. Definition from the Center of, I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you something that was very important. Also, if it was used successfully in war once, country would invest more into so it's considered more valuable as a political dissident, silent spying, espionage, and silent assassination tool than as a war tool at the moment. Okay. DEWS, definition from the Center of Army Lessons Learned from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, non-lethal weapon, which includes a neuroelectromagnetic device which uses microwave transmission of sound into the skull of persons or animals by way of pulse-modulated microwave radiation, and a silent sound device which can transmit sound to the skull of a person or animal. Note, the sound modulation may be the voice or audio subliminal messages. One application of V2Ks uses electronic scarecrow to frighten birds in the vicinity of airports. LRAD. According to the Defense Update, LRAD, long-range acoustic device, can produce 150 decibel to acoustic beam from 300 meters away. The human threshold for pain is 120 to 140 decibels. 112 in a 2003 New York Times article, and we're going to get to this news report, this 11-minute news report from 2000 in a minute, talking about the same thing this stuff talk about. This is good information, and we're going to get into more evidence that they don't need implants or nothing to target you. And if you have implants in you, you're probably an old school target, or if you have, or they're using it for further training, research, and development, just like they're using nanotech for human augmentation and human augmentation and transhumanism. While LRAD, the technology can inflict permanent damage and death beside its classification as a non-lethal weapon. Um, the New York Times 2003 article, Mr. Norris demonstrates his technology to the reporter at 1% of capacity. The reporter's eyes hurt. Hours later, still experienced a headache. LRAD simmered, and that's why I think when I experienced mine, and I don't know what I experienced, but it burnt my eyes out for 2 months. I needed glasses. Now I don't need them anymore. These are blue light glasses. Look up blue light mind control. Every screen you look at, you're being affected by blue light mind control. While LRAD may be seen as a way to save lives in times of disaster, avoid civilian casualties, similar acoustics may be cause for concern to those who exercise their right to assemble and conduct peaceful demonstrations. The New York City Police used the LRAD at the Republican National Convention, and it was used in Miami at the World Trade Organization Free Trade Protest. More remote control humans. The American Psychologist, Journal of American Psychological Association, Volume 30, March 7, 1975, number 3. Given a thermodynamic interpretation, it would follow that information can be encoded in energy and communicated to the listener. Communications, in fact, being demonstrated in Sharp and Grove, found that appropriate modulation of microwave energy can result in wireless, receiverless communication of speech. The capability of communicating directly with a human being by receiverless radio has obviously potentialities both within and without the clinic. And I'm sure it has something to do. We're finna get into something important. The NSA's Echelon. It has something to do with a one way I would say that you could tell if you're being affected by something that's planted in your body or not. Well, I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying like breaking brain entrainment for the people who don't have nothing in them. They have to entrain your brain and capture moments of your brain. If you go to my last post, it talks about this and explains this. For people who don't have nothing in them, it relies on capturing your brain for brain entrainment. There's a difference between remote neural monitoring and remote neural attacks. This stuff's deep. Signals intelligence refers to the ability to eavesdrop on cell phones, landlines, radios. Echelon was the name of the program. Echelon surveillance power allows the ability to tap all international, some domestic communication circuits and sift out messages which sound interesting. Computers automatically analyze every total. We already know all this. Snowden revealed all that. Let's see. It was initiated under legal premises. Once to take. A matter of fact, ever since the telephones come out, everything's been recorded. Is what I've heard. And I've heard that everybody's voice that's talked on the telephone's been cloned, and they can use that. And that's how, when my V2K first started, I heard my handler's voice, her friend, my sister's voice, and a couple other people's. Now they do all kinds of stuff. Could be a robotic voice. Could be a childish a man acting like a child, calling me names. Could be inner voice. Remember, they can mimic your own voice and make you think you're talking to yourself and telling yourself stuff. Total information awareness. Department of Homeland Security will be given access to all state, local database, complete access to all banking stock, all private bases on demand. They will monitor and control all communications at state and local levels, as well as build an intranet for corporations. Local police agencies that receive federal subsidies, all of them will in effect become intelligent gather units for federal government. Under the Total Information Awareness Program created by DARPA, and now switching to Palantir, I guess, is now monitoring almost all activity of Americans. Bank deposits, shopping, surfing, academic grades, voice records, spending, phone calls, utility usage, travel. The government has placed all its faith in incredible new technologies such as PROMIS software and exotic weaponry systems that are just beginning to be unveiled. TIA plans to recognize you by your voice, by your unique body odor. It even plans to use non-invasive neuroelectric sensors to read your mind. Washington Times, August 17th, 2002. Disinformation misdirection techniques of agents. Okay, information warfare works as an internet strategy according to war documents by having people chase the white rabbit around the endless maze of disinformation so that they can't even tell what's true anymore. The only people who research these topics are the thousands of victims. Truth. Okay, here's a case where we're talking about the brain print. A good case for any new target. I've got to, if you scroll down to my videos, matter of fact, I'm going to be arranging my videos in this weekend and getting my channel back in the right standards where stuff's easy to find. You'll find all my videos on playlist broken down that way because I have 812 videos, so it's hard to go down and find pertinent information, especially if you're a new TI trying to explain it to another new TI. Uh, Former NSA employee sues NSA. John St. Clair Aqua versus National Security. Fort George Meade in Maryland, USA. Civil Action 92-0449. NSA Signals Intelligence uses EMF brain stimulation for remote neural monitoring and electronic brain link. Okay, so former NSA employee says this, and if you read that case that I just quoted, look up John St. Clair Aqua's case, AKWEI, former NSA employee, sues NASA. Okay? Sues NSA. It's a very important case with a lot of good information. There's other cases too that I have found today that I'm not going to get into right now because we've been going for a while, but I will one day. Senator and former astronaut John Glenn sought to pass legislation in Congress that would make the use of human guinea pigs less likely. The Weed and Seed Program. The Weed and Seed Program is touted as a method to prevent violent crime, drug trafficking, select neighborhoods, use multiple government agencies. All these actions led to rejuvenating and seeding out operations to bring back desirable elements to replace people who have been weeded out. Just how many agencies in tandem with local weed and seed bat out is not spelled out. This program is sponsored by National Institute of Justice, which on their website proudly proclaim that non-lethal weapons are being distributed at the local level to fight crime. Just what kind of non-lethal weapons are being used and on whom is not exactly clear. One such system openly displayed by the NIJ for dissemination to local authorities is the active denial system and the milliwave radar system for burning human beings and seeing into private residences respectively. Russian and American partnerships for direct energy weapons. The March 1st, 1993 issue of Time magazine and the January 11th through 17th, 1993 issue of Defense News both reported on U.S. and Russian collaborations involving direct energy and mind control technologies which could be used for various purposes, such as to suppress riots or control dissidents. The August 22nd, 1994 Newsweek magazine reported on a secret meeting between experts from the FBI's Counterterrorism Center and Dr. Smirnov, whose work included remote EEG neural mapping of the brain, militarizing the police. March 23, 1994, Washington Post reported the Pentagon and Justice Department have agreed to share military technology, including direct energy weapons, with civilian law enforcement agencies for use on Americans' urban battlefields. And yet, more remote control humans. In the 1970s, the Law Review Crime and Justice, an article entitled The Use of Electronics and Observation and Control of Human Behavior, Its Possible Use in Rehabilitation and Control, stated in the very near future a computer technology will make possible alternatives to imprisonment. The development of systems of telemetering information from sensors implanted in or on the body were seen make possible the observation control of human behavior without physical contact. It would be possible to maintain 24-hour surveillance over the subject, to intervene electronically or physically to influence or control selected behavior. It will thus be possible to exercise control of human behavior from a distance without contact. And that's in the 1970s. So imagine, you think it's not possible now? And I'm going to tell you, look, I addressed James Martinez and said, look, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but anyway, certain person was talking about Fitbits and all this, and here's my direct response to James Martinez, and here's his answer. Okay, I'm curious to why she's talking about, and I said why this person talking about brain chips and Fitbits when none of that needed and hasn't been needed for years. Elon Musk Neuralink is a psyop to make you think you need a chip in your brain to do all that, when in fact they can accomplish all that stuff without a chip. All this nanotech everybody's talking about is not needed for mind control. Sure, it amplifies, but it's not needed for a while now. Nanotechs for human augmentation and mind control are two different things, but they intertwine eventually. And I addressed him with this. I said, even the book y'all promote, Operation Mind Control, supports my concerns above. Here's his response. He said that person got out of line, and I'm not going to say that person's name, um, but he says it's far worse than people know at this point. Uh, it's literally Star Trek level. However, for the first time, I have seen a glimmer of hope in a conference call. When I'm able to, I'll go into more detail officially. Elon Musk and others are not the top or most influential people regarding the brain-computer interface issue. And at some point, he'll be speaking on this. Okay, so he even agreed with me. Star Trek level technology. I was talking to uh my family last night, and I told Holly, I said, look, what's funny is I asked my grandpa was a Navy man. He 20 years in the Navy, fought in the Korean War, World War II, um, and was second to command on a U.S. Battleship in World War II. And I asked him, I said, "Do you know any secrets?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I can't tell you no secrets." And he said, I said, "Well, what about this Star Wars stuff Reagan's talking about?" I was a kid then, but I was always curious about this kind of stuff. He said, "You better believe they've got that kind of technology." And it always blew my mind, and I always wondered what he was talking about because he wouldn't talk about it no further. And now I know. Okay. A president for the people. Jimmy Carter became president in 1976. He promptly moved to introduce a democratic control. He instituted Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, established an 11-member secret court to oversee surveillance activities of our covert agencies. Carter's move to reform the CIA was the point of outsiders head of the agency, Admiral Stansfield Turner. After Turner took over as director of CIA, 800 rogue agents were let go, though most all of them found work in various false front companies that had been set up in the previous years. Tighter restrictions on human experiment include accountability and transparency did not occur until 1997 when President Clinton issued revised protocols on human experiments. The Russians banned all EMF weapons in 2001. Police state rising. In March 1993, the National Institute of Justice issued a report titled NIJ Initiative on Less Than Lethal Weapons, which details the push to arm state and law enforcement with direct energy weapons for use in domestic affairs. Targeting individuals. In 2004, U.S. Air Force Directed Controlled Effects gives a clear picture of objectives. For the controlled personal effects, the S&T panel explored potential for targeting individuals with non-lethal force for military useful. Though the application of non-lethal force is possible to physically influence or incapacitate personnel from the Air Research Lab. They provide a link here. Okay, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Part 2. Congressman Dennis Kucinich introduced the Space Preservation Act of 2001, originally in the House of H.R. 2977, which listed electronic, cyclotronic, or information weapons and plasma, electromagnetic, sonic, or ultrasound weapons that would be prohibited or controlled by legislation. Augmented cognition. One application of augmented cognition allows a user to monitor a person's brain function and send anticipatory commands to a person being monitored. For instance, a military command unit will be able to monitor a pilot in a cockpit based on the sensory output of the soldier. The base command can input messages directly into the pilot's brain to improve the performance. DARPA describes this as human-computer symbiosis, whereby the research will enable the development of closed-loop human-computer technologies, where the state of the user is measured, analyzed, and automatically adapted by the computational system. DARPA does not address the implications of substance symbiosis and the dilemma of the extent to which a person can or should be manipulated. The use of this technology used for military purposes but may not be long until used to improve the factory worker, prisoners, and mentally ill. Proof of due existence. Director of U.S. News and World Report, July 7, 1997. Douglas Pasternak. So-called acoustic sonic weapons can vibrate the insides of human beings to stun them, nauseate them, or even liquefy their bowels or reduce them to quivering diarrheic messes, according to Pentagon briefing. Anybody had that happen to them? I know I have plenty of times. Iraq, testing ground for dudes. U.S. taps high-tech arsenal. Pentagon likely debut news in Iraq. Cincinnati Post, March 20, 2003. Once you're engaged and you have capability that's almost ready, you'll try it, said Clark Murdoch, a former Air Force strategic planner, now with the Center for Strategic International Studies. All kinds of things have been invented, particularly in the classified world, that would be used. If you use it and it works, no one knows. Why talk about it? Exactly. And you think that all these papers they're letting you read of the biofield and all this information is the information and what they're using now, or is what I'm saying true and it's classified? These people sign non-disclosure agreements when they work on top secret projects. Anybody that knows the secret stuff and reveals it gets charged with espionage. Okay, philosophy of Occam's razor, which state the simplest explanation is usually the best. So to make someone sound paranoid, all you have to do is come up with sufficiently complex plan of harassment, and the majority of the people disbelieve that event will be sufficient not to act or care about it. A disinformation misdirection techniques of agents. Simply by getting a couple of agents to pretend they're psychotronic slaves and then have them talk about evil aliens or other typically non-believable topics, the whole group of people who now talk about the electromagnetic brain manipulation is associated with evil aliens and not believed by the average person who first heard the story. And I think they've done that to Fred Bell. Okay, HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Projects, the world's largest electromagnetic broadcasting station. The HAARP project manager describes an experiment Earth penetrating capability using frequencies of 10 to 20 hertz per second, maybe 1 hertz per cycle, one cycle per second type waves. The range of frequencies are the same dominant frequencies within which human brain normally operates. Objections to non-disclosures of the biological effects of ELF on living things were ignored. The military, particularly the Navy and Air Force, have extensive research on negative effects of electromagnetic frequencies. These effects have been well documented, but the government easily deflects these public concern by playing down the effects, minimizing the risks. This is the same method used for military systems, including nuclear weapons tests, LSD experiments, radiation experiments, all carried out on unknown subjects under the guise of national security. The environmental impact statement has been falsified as to the true nature of the weapon systems, its capabilities, and its possible fallout. HAARP can do 7 things or more: generate an EMP to disable just electronic devices, improve submarine communications, more flexible, accurate radar, disrupt enemy communications while maintaining ours, Earth penetrating radar for finding hidden installations, finding oil, gas, mineral deposits, detection of low flying missiles and planes. These are just the public stated capabilities. The brain operates with a narrow band of frequencies. Beta waves, normal activity, 13 to 35 hertz. Alpha waves are focused mental function, 8 to 12 hertz. Theta waves are mental imagery are 4 to 7 hertz. Delta waves or sleep are 0.5 to 3 hertz. External stimulation of the brain by electromagnetic energy causes the brain to become entrained or locks into a phase with an external signature. Specific waveforms and techniques and frequencies trigger precise chemical responses in the brain. The release of these neurochemicals cause specific reactions in the brain, which result in feelings of fear, lust, depression, love. The power level needed to achieve level control of the brain activity is very small, from 5 to 200 microamperes, which is 1,000 times less than the power to run a 60-watt light bulb. The trick into influencing brain activity is in the combination of frequency, power level, and waveform. Another patent, 601-1991. A system method for enabling human beings to communicate by way of their monitored brain activity. The brain activity of individuals monitored and transmitted to a remote location. Example given by satellite. At the remote location, the monitored brain activity is compared with pre-recorded normalized brain activity curves, waveforms, or patterns to determine if a match or substantial match is found. If such a match is found, the computer remote location determines that the individual was attempting to communicate the word, phrase, or thought corresponding to the match stored normalized signal. Bathing in microwaves. We were bathed in microwave energy. How come so little independent investigation in this area? In light that the head acts as a microwave cavity and neurons as microwave transducers. There are earth-shattering patents from the 70s, 80s on brainwave amplification, brainwave reading at distance, and brainwave modulation using a wide range of frequencies. How is this being ignored? Pretty obviously what's going on, isn't it? PEPs, pulsed energy projectiles, are another form of weaponry being used to paralyze a victim with pain. According to New Scientist magazine, expanding plasma affects nerve cells, but the long-term effects remain a public mystery. One of the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Program reports PEPs create a flashbang effect that startles and distracts. However, the effects are much greater than just startling an individual. In a 2001 Time magazine article states that PEP pulsed energy projectile superheats the surface moisture around the target so rapidly that it literally explodes, producing a bright light a bright flash of light and a loud bang, effects like a stun grenade. But unlike a grenade, the PEP travels at nearly the speed of light and can take out a target with pinpoint accuracy. Robert G. Malek patented in 1976 apparatus and method for remotely monitoring altering brain waves. The number patent is U.S. patent number 3951134. The patent abstracts of apparatus a method of sensing brain waves at a position remote from the subject, whereby electromagnetic signals of different frequencies are simultaneously transmitted to the brain of the subject. The present invention relates to apparatus and method for monitoring brain waves, wherein all components of the apparatus are remote from the test subject. High-frequency transmitters are operated to radiate electromagnetic energy of different frequencies through antennas which are capable of scanning the entire brain of the test subject or designed region thereof. The signals of the different frequencies penetrate the skull of the subject and impinge upon the brain, where they mix to form the interference wave modulated by radiation from the brain's natural electroactivity. The modulated interference waves transmitted by the brain, received by antenna at a remote station where it's demodulated and processed to provide a profile of the subject's brain waves. In addition to passively monitoring the brain waves, the subject's neurological processes may be affected by transmitting to his brain, though transmitting brain compensating signals. The latter signals can be derived from the received and processed brain waves. Dumbing down the populace is difficult for people to learn and understand. We spend a third of our lives in school. It's difficult to comprehend the thinking it took the militants to decide to declare informational war on the very country and people they were sworn to protect. Again, this is happening all over the world, not just in America. So the only conclusion that you can draw is that they're not afraid these secrets will fall into the wrong hands abroad, but they do not trust citizens with these secrets and have declared psychological informational war on us. Just in case you still wondering why we have terrorism at all, or why we're called the Great Satan by many countries, just be reminded of articles published in major newspapers, such as February 14, 1992, USA Today, who reported allegations by Saddam Hussein that the CIA targeted him and that they used psychotronic biocommunication to cause a clot in the brain or heart. We even have laws that we cannot assassinate leaders of other countries. Silent assassination through a dampified neurons has many applications for pissing people off and creating lifelong enemies. Even the European Parliament documented this fact about the psychological effects of psychotronics after Desert Storm. Almost every country in the world is aware of the psychotronic weapons around the world except citizens. Sadly, our government decided to make the most uneducated, politically ignorant nation of so-called first world countries through an embarrassing public education system, perpetually lying to us due to national security. It would also appear possible to create high-fidelity speech in the human body, raising the possibility of covert suggestion and psychological direction. That came from New World Vista's report, Air Force. The disinformation techniques used to conceal direct energy weapons developments involve the use of non-lethal to describe these technologies as well, embedding the development of these weapons within the haystack of innocuous weapon developments, such as immobilizing sticky foams, temporary blinding lasers, and pepper spray-like materials. Kennedy's warning. Now, the president has been used to formulate a plot to destroy America's freedom. Before I leave office, I must involve and inform the citizens of this plight. Eisenhower's warning. Search for the video of Eisenhower's farewell speech where he coined the term military-industrial complex when sending a very chilling, serious warning to the American people regarding the looming dangers of a nation being overcome by a policy of war contractors rather than the policy for the people. Regulating direct energy weapons. Dr. Nick Bejic. He's the editor of the Earth Pulse Flash Pulse, new science book series, published articles in science, politics, education, well-known lecturer, having presented throughout the United States and 19 countries. Bejic served as an expert witness and speaker before the European Parliament, has spoken on various issues for groups representing citizens' concerns, statesmen, elected officials, scientists, and others. Publisher and co-owner of Earth Pulse Press and executive director of the Lay Institute of Technology, a Texas nonprofit corporation. He stated in February 1998, I testified before the European Union Parliament for 1 hour and a half, convinced them of detrimental effects of non-lethal weapons on humans, their behaviors, and their minds. The European Union was convinced and passed a resolution banning the use of weapons that can manipulate a person. See Parliament Resolution A4-005/99, entitled Resolution on Environment, Security, and Foreign Policy, passed on January 29, 1999. During the hearings, the U.S. representative, NATO representatives sat in the back and declined to participate when asked. In the U.S., there's no such resolution or anything remotely close to being considered by any member of Congress. There's no concern because no one knows about them. In fact, when I interviewed James Martinez, he even said the people that work on this, the politicians know nothing about this. They know very little. Okay, that's why when you call your politician, um, they may know about the smear campaign, COINTELPRO, but some of these weapons they're clueless of. Okay, they may know to watch you, you're a terrorist, and know about the harassment and all that, and participate in that. But some of this stuff, like these weapons and stuff, some of them are clueless about it. Not all. Russian American partnership. Dr. Igor Smirnov, a Russian expert on non-lethal weapons, was brought to the U.S. for a series of meetings in Virginia in 1993. The meetings were attended by representatives of the CIA, DIA, FBI, and ARPA. Civilians included representatives of NIMH and GMC's Director of Biomedical Research. Smirnov and his non-lethal weapons technology was brought to Waco during Branch Davidian siege in 1993 in hopes of using them on Koresh, but a software problem reportedly made this impossible, and Smirnov could not guarantee its safety. Experiment on the people. In 1940, scientists exposed 400 prisoners in Chicago with malaria. U.S. experiment. Nazi scientists at the Nuremberg trials to defend their own experimentation. During World War II, Seventh-day Adventist conscientious objectors were enlisted into Operation Whitecoat by the U.S. Army and the Adventist Church. They were told they were being tested for defense research purposes, while the government was in fact testing offensive chemical and biological weapons. After World War II, matters became far worse for those who were caught up in the web of illegal scientific testing. 1947, Colonel E. Kirkpatrick of U.S. Atomic Energy Commission issued a secret document stating the agency would begin administering intravenous doses of radioactive substances to human subjects. At the same time, atomic tests in which the residents of Utah and Nevada were purposely exposed to radioactive fallout. There were also a series of operations in the 1940s and 50s in which cities were attacked secretly by the military through the spread of biological agents in order to track their propagation through a real population. Microwave hearing. Dr. Ross today determined that emotional states and behavior can be remotely influenced by merely placing the subject in an electromagnetic field. By directing the carrier frequency to stimulate the brain using amplitude modulation to shape the wave to mimic a desired EEG frequency, he was able to impose a 4.5 CPS theta rhythm on his subject. Dr. Joseph Sharp and Alan Frey experimented with microwaves seeking to transmit spoken words directly into the audio cortex via a pulsed microwave analog of the speaker's sound vibration. Indeed, Frey's work in this field dating back to the 60s gave rise to the so-called Frey effect, which is more common as known to as microwave hearing. With the Pentagon, this ability is now known as artificial telepathy. Ade and others have compiled an entire library of frequencies and pulsation rates which can affect the mind and the nervous system. Do's. While the effects of the weapons appear to be short-term and topical in nature, there's evidence electromagnetic weapons have effect on the brain, inducing sleep disruption, behavior changes. They can produce anxiety, fear, compliance in humans. It's possible to use these weapons as a method of torture. Yet, without knowing exactly when, where, and how these weapons are used, we are left to speculate. Electromagnetic warfare. I'm going to see how much I got to go. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, we ain't got far to go, and we'll be done after I play the news report, 11-minute news report. Okay, Woodpecker. Full-scale electromagnetic warfare between U.S. USSR began July 4th, 1976, when Russians began broadcasting a broadband and short radio wave signal that could be heard all over the world. The signals maintained at normal expense and made up most powerful radio transmitters in the world. The Russian Woodpecker radio signals varied between 3.26 and 17.5 megahertz. Shortly after it came online, complaints were heard mostly centered in Oregon. Headaches, anxiety, lack of body coordination, other symptoms. The Soviets caught U.S. intelligence unaware with their 100-megawatt transmission of extremely low frequency waves. The extremely low pulse covered the frequency range of the brain. I had a hypothesis new mind control weapon could entrain a human's being, e.g. I designed an experiment and conclusively proved that the Soviet transmission could entrain the human brain and thereby induce behavioral modification. The CIA proved a certain electromagnetic frequency could cause You know what? The C word. I've repeated these experiments, found this to be true. A single electromagnetic frequency classified can cause the C word. Nothing stops or weakens these signals. They have been huge transmitters in South Africa, Australia, and other places to beam ELF waves back to Russia. There's no shield that will stop these signals. Military industrial complex. The money involved in non-lethal weapon industry is growing as military contracts are reaping the profits. According to Defense Industry Daily, Aardvac Tactical in Azusa, California, won a $50 million contract to develop non-lethal weapons, anti-terrorism capabilities, riot gear. 127 Iotron was awarded with $12 million contract to develop the laser-induced plasma channel technology, which produces man-made lightning bolts. SAIC received a $49 million budget in November 2004 to develop high-power microwave and other direct energy systems, while Fior Industries received $16.3 million contract for similar technology, and ITT received a $7.85 million contract for the same in 2000. 129 Fior Industries received 7.1 for high-power microwave research experiment program as early as 1994. In the same year, Hughes Missile System Company received $6.6 million contract for high-power microwave suppression of enemy air defense technology. Lockheed Martin secured a deal with DARPA in 2005 to continue development of space-based radar antenna technology and $19.5 million contract. According to the Lockheed press release, the technology could significantly increase the global persistent surveillance coverage. In May of 2006, the Air Force issued $24 million in contract for electromagnetic effects research and development to Northrop Grumman, Voss Scientific, Lockheed Martin, Electromagnetic Applications, and others. Russia adopts direct energy weapons as their go-to weapon of mass destruction. A good 2013 overview read from Czech activist and writer Majmir Babik. How far in the future? Okay. And Polish defense minister reacts to mind control weaponry. We watched that the other day if you go to my proactive video. All right, I'm going to read this and I'm going to play the 11-minute video and then we'll be done for the day. Part of the Tempest program allows for the distant detection and interpretation of electric emanations of electronics and computers, even while much of the program's techniques are still classified and documented or heavily redacted or blacked out. These capabilities acknowledge the fact. Essentially, the NSA or any agent has a target they can access, obtain data from a remote system without tapping into wires, hacking into a system. It's all capable through signals, intelligence, radios, antennas, and signals. It's completely wireless and remote monitoring process. If the target were a laptop computer within a cabin or hilltop, the Tempest agent was at the bottom of the hill. The agent could essentially determine what images or data is being processed on the laptop screen, all by the means of direct energy radio signals, which can capture emanating pulses through the laptop. There's absolutely no need for any visual or video contact. It's all done through electric signals. In the 80s, the Tempest program at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio was certifying hundreds of technicians a year. Hundreds of technicians a year. The human body is basically an electrochemical soup of sorts. The human mind emanates electric impulses and its natural function and process. These electric impulse signals can be captured with antennas and interpreted through algorithms to provide an agent with images and words that are being processed within the human mind. It's just like Tempest technology, which has been around for a good while now. The evidence is often right in front of us. Most of us never connect the dots. It sounds like the stuff of science fiction, but it's not. How many people in the world are aware of this capability? Granted, it's a scary thought to realize that one's mind could be read, and those who own these technology capabilities don't necessarily want people getting scared, now do they? Those who wish to delve into this knowledge will find many published scientific studies and articles, as well as declassified material that will further understand this reality. Through the literature I've read on this subject matter, through experience I witnessed within the community, I can assure you technological capabilities fairly well defined at this day and age, though I will be long dead before the day comes these capabilities common knowledge to man. It's funny, no sad, because in 2016, many people be in total awe. They saw a YouTube video of an ocean destroyer shooting a drone out of the sky with a laser. Amazing as this is, one of the real-world weapon capabilities our Navy's available right now. But what's not so funny is, what's actually scary is the fact this capability, although rudimentary, was possible over 40 years ago. Yes, almost a half a century ago. In 1973, DARPA's early incarnation did the same exact thing over the skies of New Mexico. So I guess it's actually sad because laser-like technology, Tempest mind reading capabilities, will likely go to the common unknown to the common man for many, many years to come. References: Monarch, the New Phoenix Program, New World Order, ELF, Psychotronic Tyranny, Weapons of Mass Coercion, The Use of Energy Weapons, HARP, Chemtrails for Political Control by Byron Bellistos, The Hidden Evil by Mark Rich, The Matrix Deciphered by Robert Duncan, U.S. Electromagnetic Weapons and Human Rights by Peter Phillips, Lou Brown, and Bridget Thornton, Tempest Timeline, um, Cryptome.org. The U.S. military shot down a drone with a laser in 1973 by Kyle Mazukami. Okay. And I got more to get to on this article about shielding and stuff, but I'm not going to get into it today. I'm going to show you this video real quick, and I'm done for the day. I just thought it's important to bring this stuff to you to show you this stuff is possible. This is the three-part report aired on November 17, 2000 on KOVR 13, a TV station in Stockton, California, part of the CBS, almost 1 year prior to 9/11.
Assignment. Ross Blackstone explains. Really, no one there? One really was what? Really, no one there? What is someone real? Well, have you ever felt that someone was watching you?
I apologize,
really
y'all.
Someone really was watching. Well, in tonight's special assignment, Ross Blackstone introduces us to Northern Californians who say the government is monitoring their every move, reading their thoughts, and controlling their minds.
It's an entire program. It's a stalking, harassment, surveillance, torture.
Marianne Stratton says she is a walking human experiment.
You can't go anywhere without somebody following you, knowing they know what you buy, they know what you purchase.
At this rally last summer, Stratton and others explained how the government monitors their thoughts through ultra-frequency radio waves sent by any energy source directly to the electromagnetic waves in their brains.
And like I said, they can tune it to any human that they want in this country, just like a radio frequency, an FM, like an FM station.
They say the waves can also control their minds and their bodies.
They can cause your heart to hurt. They can cause you blast your stomach. They can cause your ankles to give out. They can cause your knees to give out. Whatever they direct it to, wherever they can direct the pain to, your body feels all of it.
Why? They claim the government is perfecting mind control technology to use it more.
And it's all form of terrorism and torture to drive the targeted subject insane, to drive the human insane.
The government has confessed to similar operations in the past using LSD or hypnosis. Now, hundreds of self-proclaimed mind control victims say these documents prove it's happening again. On special assignment, I'm Ross Blackstone for KOVR 13 News.
And on our 6 o'clock special assignment, Ross is going to introduce us to a woman who's leading the fight to disclose this information in Northern California. Have you ever listened to that little voice in your head? Most people consider that their conscience, maybe their intuition. But in tonight's special assignment, Ross Blackstone explains that voice may not be yours at all. Some say it could be the government controlling your mind.
Cheryl Welsh lives in Davis and studies law at Lincoln. She says she's also a victim of street theater, an experiment in which the government controls the minds of everyone around.
Wherever I go about in my day, people will spit, swear, blow smoke in my face, basically 100 insults a day. And
the purpose, Cheryl says, is to observe how she reacts so the government can study her mind and eventually use the same technology to control the minds of America's enemies. If that sounds crazy to you, Cheryl says the government is succeeding.
You discredit the enemy. You make them look like a kook. And if you can imagine the government's motive, if you can read a person's mind, you're not going to reveal that for anything.
She's not the only one. Cheryl has organized a group called Citizens Against Human Rights Abuse that has attracted hundreds of self-proclaimed victims from California and all over the world.
I'm just trying to organize, I guess, and gather the information and get the information out because I don't think the public has it.
She's gathered documents like this from the United Nations that suggest banning electromagnetic weapons because of their biological effects on people. She's also collected papers that she says shows long-term American goals.
I've got the documents from NASA, from Federal Times, from back in the 70s, the DIA, talking about how they were going to use this microwave hearing to drive political targets crazy.
Welsh says more and more people are stepping forward to say now it's coming true. On special assignment, Ross Blackstone, KOVR 13 News.
Well, when our special assignment continues on the 10 o'clock news, you'll find out if electromagnetic mind control is even possible and how. Periodically, over the past several decades, we've heard of situations when the U.S. government has experimented on human beings. Some cases have involved nuclear weapons, others, LSD, and mind control. So is it possible something similar could happen to us right now without our knowledge? In tonight's special assignment, Ross Blackstone introduces us to Northern Californians who say it is, and that they have proof.
Imagine everywhere you go, someone is watching, reading your thoughts, controlling your mind.
They know what you do inside your house, which you're being monitored and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
At the state capitol last summer, Marianne Stratton rallied with dozens of other Californians who say it's happening to them through ultra-frequency radio waves.
I can be in a room full of 1,000 people, but it'll only affect me.
They believe the government is sending radio waves to directly affect the unique electromagnetic waves in their brains. That way it can control their thoughts and bodies.
Pain is unbelievable, okay? Enough to make you pass out. If you've ever broken a bone, you want to know what pain. A bone, you want to know what pain. You want to know what pain.
Did you see how she stumbled there? After our interview, Stratton said the government made her throat swell so she would have trouble talking to us.
And it's electronic harassment, but it seems as when you become actively involved with disclosing this information, it becomes torture.
They believe the government is testing mind control tactics to use in war, and anyone could be targeted. Some are uneducated people with no ties. Others have information the government wants to monitor.
It could be because of law enforcement. It could be because you're a whistleblower. It could be because you were in the Army, Navy.
And they say there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. They also claim minds are controlled different ways. Cheryl Welsh says the government uses radio waves to affect other people around her so as to study her mental reactions.
Wherever I go about in my day, people will spit, swear, blow smoke in my face, basically 100 insults a day.
Sounds far-fetched? Well, don't make up your mind just yet. Some say they have research going back more than 40 years, which says it's possible.
I've got the documents from NASA, from Federal Times, from back in the 70s, the DIA, talking about how they were going to use this microwave hearing to drive political targets crazy.
Welsh is also a law student at Lincoln. Through her organization, Citizens Against Human Rights Abuse, she shared documents she's gathered with hundreds of people around the world. Documents like this from the United Nations.
It talks about the electromagnetic weapons, and the Russians wanted to ban the weapons.
Welsh is not the only one. In his latest book, Earth Rising, renowned author and speaker Nick Begich cites more than 30 patents that show mind control is possible by using light, sound, or electronic fields.
As long as the pulse rate is correct and it hits a window frequency.
He uses an example from 1997, when more than 600 Japanese children went into epileptic seizures while watching a cartoon, which flashed a light at a certain rate. Similarly, he says if a radio wave is sent at the right frequency to an acupuncture point on the skin, It will translate into an auditory signal that is sent directly to the brain. Vegas used this infrasound device to demonstrate on me.
I can hear it when you press it to my skin, but not when you take it off.
Right.
So that's sending the signal through my skin.
Through your nervous system, right into the brain, and the brain is decoding it. And so it's almost like it's right in the center of your head.
And you can do that even if you weren't touching my skin?
Not with this device, but if I were using a microwave carrier at a distance, we could achieve the same thing.
He says the sound could then be used to control my behavior, and the waves can be sent through any energy source, radio towers, indoor lights, especially the internet. It would be difficult to target specific people like Orr, Stratton, or Welch.
To target an individual, you really need some line of sight, and you need to use something like a microwave carrier.
But he says people can be controlled in mass. The question then is, has the government used the technology? Begich says yes. He believes the U.S. sent anxiety signals to get Iraqis to surrender during the Gulf War.
They said, well, it was because we bombarded them so heavily. That was the American story. You know, look at Dresden, Germany, London during World War II. I mean, that doesn't drive people out.
Most Americans have heard how the CIA has used LSD to control minds. Secretary of Energy O'Leary has acknowledged 500,000 people have been experimented on in some form in the U.S. without their permission. Could it happen again?
We're in the beginning of a new millennium. And believe me, the stuff that's happened in the past is happening again.
Begich says the technology is not extremely advanced. If the military can figure it out, individuals can too. Once that happens, advertisers, politicians, terrorists, anyone could have the ability to control your mind. On special assignment, I'm Ross Blackstone for KOVR 13 News.
Well, Nick Begich has been able to convince the European Parliament to call for a ban in the beginning of treaty dialogue for anything that can manipulate human behavior. Still, the U.S. denies the technology. And if American scientists talk about their work, they will be held for treason. But Begich says many former Soviet scientists who experimented with the technology during the Cold War are now going public because of a lack of funding.
There you go. Don't believe me? Believe the news. But listen, well, I appreciate y'all listening today. That's my evidence presented to you that they do not need implants or anything to do this. This technology is really advanced. I'm not saying that people do not have implants in them for research, training, and development for different kinds of effects and all that. Of course, they're going to do that. And of course, nanotech is in everybody because the transhumanism agenda and the human augmentation agenda is here. So, I will be doing a video soon on how to detox your body from this stuff. I'm still researching a lot of different things. I did watch a video the other day where they showed an example of colloidal gold, which I don't even know how one would come up with that. I mean, get that. But I'm sure somebody knows. I'm just not educated in that area. But it showed how the colloidal gold destroyed nanotech. So anyway, God bless all TIs, SRA, any non-consensual experimentee, MK Ultra survivor, anybody that's went through all this. Y'all are in my prayers, and pray for me as well. Thanks.